Keep talking if you want, but at some point we'll probably take a little bit of a pause. There are people who are waiting out there, so if some people at some point in the town hall want to depart because you've had your question answered or you may have other things to do, we'll give other people an opportunity to come in at some point. So just so we're all aware. So,
okay, thank you.
I just want to make sure as many people can get in here as possible. So if there are some people that have to leave at some point, and then there's some empty seats, then we can bring some more people in.
You're smart. Very smart. Thank you. Hello, Representative. Good to see you again.
Oh, yeah. We'll have a couple of weeks.
I thank you for being here, but I still think you're a libertarian.
Well, I'm a libertarian. I'm a Republican.
Well, you have, in this day and age, I would say everything's slash, something's happening on that. Nice thing you mentioned. My wife is 19.
Last time. special thank you to the Berry County Commission on Aging for hosting us this morning for this town hall meeting. We really appreciate it. My name is Catherine Condon, and I am Representative Amash's District Director. I just want to remind all of you, please never hesitate to reach out to our office if we can be of any assistance. When it comes to a federal agency, if you might be having challenges with Social Security or the IRS, we're always happy to assist. Or if you just want to share a comment to pass along to the representative, feel free to reach out to us. And if you haven't signed up for our e-newsletter yet, go to amash.house.gov so you can keep posted on what's going on in our office, and then obviously whenever future town halls are announced, you'll receive a notification. So it's a great resource. But today's town hall, the representative will give an update on what's going on in DC first, and then he'll take questions from the audience. We just ask that you please be respectful of those around you and not interrupt those who are asking questions or when the representative is trying to give an answer, because then it'll make it easier for more questions to be answered. So please keep that in mind. But with that, I will hand it over to the representative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for being here. This is great. I've held town halls here many times. We've never had this many people here. And I think it's fantastic that we're getting such great turnout at these town halls, that we're getting such high community engagement at these town halls. It's something I've been wanting for years. Sometimes I've held town halls and only a couple dozen people show up. Other times we've had in the hundreds, even in the past. But it's nice to have these town halls filled. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't have the mic in my hand at the time. At some point, I'll probably try to take a little bit of a break just to let some of the people in. If some people then want to depart at that point, it's up to you. But if you have something else you'd like to do, that'll allow some more people to come in here, because we're past capacity, and so there are some people in the hall there. But we'd like to get as many people in here as possible to be able to ask questions and participate. But I, again, want to thank you for being here. We've had a lot of press coverage of these town halls, which is also a nice thing to get the media covering some of these events as well. That's something that we wanted more of over the past several years. And the press coverage has been great nationally too, saying that our community is respectful, our community has real conversations, honest engagement, and we've gotten a lot of kudos for our community here, for this district here, for the way we handle these town halls. So I want to say thank you to all of you for being respectful, for being thoughtful, for the way you handle yourselves at town halls, because that makes a big difference and allows us to do these things as effectively as possible. So let me talk just a little bit about a couple things, and then we'll move to questions. There's a couple letters that I have signed on to. One of the letters I signed on to was a letter that I led with my colleague, Rep. Walter Jones, and this was a letter to the intelligence community and the FBI asking them to give all of Congress a full briefing on the Russia allegations and the leaks, so that we can, so on both sides. I know that there are people on different sides who are more concerned about one aspect or the other. I think that we should have a full briefing for Congress on all of it. Let's find out more about the allegations that have been made, and let's also find out about the leaks. I think that,
What was your response?
yes, so I heard over here we need it open to the public. I agree that the public needs to know. At the first stage, though, we'll be dealing with some classified information, it's likely, so that information has to be kept classified. So at least in the initial stages, it could go to members of Congress, and then we'll have to have a discussion with the administration or with the Congress about what else can be released, to the extent that it would be safe for people to, sometimes there's information about people in the field and other things that you have to be careful about. So we want to be sensitive to that. But that's one of the letters that I led, and we'll continue to press the administration on that. I'll continue to press my colleagues in the House and Senate on that. The Senate Intelligence Committee sounds like it's going to push forward with a more thorough investigation. I haven't seen that yet on the House side, so I'll continue to press my House colleagues on that. Now, none of us knows exactly what we'll find, but it's important that we have an understanding of what's going on. I think that's critically important. The other letter I signed was a letter from my Democratic colleague, Jim McGovern, and he sent a letter to, I believe, to the administration, and it was, it might have been to our leadership. It was to Speaker Ryan and the leadership team, and the letter was just a call to have authorizations for the use of force. If we're going to have our troops sent out to other countries, then we better have it authorized by Congress. And there's going to be a full debate on that issue. You know, there are talks now of sending troops to Syria. There are talks of further engagement in places like Yemen. I've always been a strong believer in following the Constitution. Congress has to declare war. Presidents on both sides have ignored this, have taken us to war without having congressional authorization. So we want to make sure that there's a full debate. It doesn't mean I vote yes or no. I don't know which one I'll vote on a particular authorization until I see the authorization. But we should have that debate. There's no doubt about it, and American people should be involved in those decisions. We should never send our sons and daughters or fathers and mothers off to war without having a full debate with the public about this, a full discussion with the public. And I'm committed to that. So those are two letters that we worked on over the past couple weeks. And as for legislative items, there have been some legislative items, but it's been relatively slow, believe it or not. There haven't been as many legislative items as we've had in the past. Part of it has been, I guess, waiting to see what the administration does, which I think is not the proper way to operate as a Congress. We are the body charged with passing legislation. It's not the president's job to pass legislation. The president just signs or vetoes. And so we should do our job and not spend our whole time worrying about will the particular president sign it or not sign it, or what's the president's plan. I believe that when President Obama was in office, and I believe it now. There's often too much waiting around, pre-negotiating with the White House, instead of letting the House of Representatives and Senate do their work. We're supposed to be deliberative bodies that represent the American people. And we should reflect the will of the people through our deliberations. And we should have votes on as many items as we can so that we can reflect that will. And I've always been a big supporter of allowing Democrats to have their amendments on the floor, allowing more Republicans to have their amendments on the floor, so we can have votes on a variety of issues. But too often what's happened in the past, and I'm afraid it's going to keep happening, is that the White House and the Senate leadership and the House leadership get together and they pre-negotiate everything, and then they take it to the members of Congress and they say take it or leave it. Yeah. And they don't allow us the chance to actually have that deliberation to represent all of you. In fact, often when they know that something is going to pass, that's when they don't let you have that amendment on the floor, because they know that it will pass. So they say, no, we can't have that because you're going to end up changing the bill because it will pass. Which is obviously not the way our government should work. Our government should really reflect the will of the people and be a representative, deliberative type of government. So with that, I guess I'll just head straight to questions. We'll open it up, and just please be respectful of each other, and we will.
I have a small comment and then a question.
Sure. You have to pull up a piece of paper. Might not be small, but pull up a piece of paper.
My name
Can we
is...
have the microphone to the questioner, please?
Yes, microphone, please.
I think we can.
This is a small enough
Yeah.
room, I'm sure everybody can hear me. Possibly not, I guess not, they're shaking their heads.
As long as you get the.
My name is Roger. I live in the 3rd Congressional District. I hope you know that the American people will not be caught unaware in the next election. The people of this country know the mistake they made. We will turn out and we will vote. The real majority in this country is united. They're standing up all over the country. And we don't have to lie about the millions standing up with us. Now, you can fix the problems in the country with the 25th Amendment to the Constitution. The 25th Amendment to the Constitution. You lose nothing. Pence goes into the White House. You still have your power. You still have your agenda. And a majority of the people in this country know that, including the majority of the Republicans. Now, my question to you is, how long are you and your Republican colleagues going to continue supporting this crazy person in the White House?
We just had an election. People voted. I didn't vote for either of the candidates. People made their own decisions, and the people elected President Trump. And I've said many times before, when we had President Obama in office, I would have people at town halls complaining about President Obama and why not remove him from office. But please, let me answer the question. People would ask, why don't you remove him from office, et cetera, et cetera. I always made the same point. The will of the people is reflected in the vote, and you don't remove anyone from office unless there is bipartisan, broad support for that, and we're not at that point. We're not even close to that point. Someone has to commit high crimes and misdemeanors and all the rest.
Read the Constitution. Amendment, Section 4.
All right.
The emolument clause.
Yes, ma'am. Let me try to.
Thank you. Michelle Davis, Alto. Was wondering, we live in a time that is unprecedented right now. And I think one of the things that might be helpful, a lot of us are writing letters, postcards, things like that, phone calls. We don't always feel that they're being heard, they're being listened to. How would you feel about having focus groups that put Democrats and Republicans together from your district that you would actually work with to be able to see how we really feel, and not just a town hall once in a while, but focus groups where we can actually work together?
So I don't have a problem with meeting with groups, bipartisan groups. Yesterday I met with a bipartisan group of people within our district who are in the healthcare industry. Some of them are doctors, some of them are providers. On both sides of the aisle, some of them wanted single payer, some of them wanted a very free market approach to healthcare. I like those kind of things. Generally speaking, though, I have to do more of these style of events so that I can meet with as many people as possible and hear as many concerns. Anytime you get a small group, you're going to have just a few of the views represented. So I'm happy to continue to do that, and if you wanted to be part of something, I'd be happy to consider that. But at the same time, I have to keep in mind that I represent more than 700,000 people, and I'm elected to use my judgment to hear as many people as I can in the district, to hear their concerns, and that I'm elected to use my judgment and to represent everyone in the district. So I keep that in mind, and I will always be committed to doing that. Thanks for your question. Yeah, I'm gonna go over here. I'll be back.
First of all, thank you for being here. This is my husband, Tommy. He spent 15 years in the military. On August of 2015, he had his first heart attack and a stent placement. The VA was supposed to pay it, and they didn't allow him to go to a cardiologist until December of 2016.
Oh my God.
That's 16 months later. In January of this year, my husband had his second heart attack with stent placement. March 13th of this year, he's going in for a 5 bypass. My husband might not make it. When are we going to take care of these veterans? That's my question.
First, I want to thank you for your husband's service and for your sacrifice as well. No, we haven't done a good enough job taking care of our veterans. That's for sure. And there's a lot of blame to go around, I think, on all sides for that. So I want to make sure that going forward, our veterans have more options. I've always believed that they should have the ability to go to private care centers so that they can get their health care needs taken care of more readily. When we make these decisions to send people off to war, we are also responsible for providing for them when they come back injured or sick. And so I want to make sure that we have that care, and I'll continue to push for more private options for people so that you'll get the benefits from the government, and you can use those benefits wherever you choose. So, thanks.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I apologize. My name is Mark Hagan. My wife's not here, but my wife and I are third-generation veterans. Not just my father, but my mother as well. And I wanted to say, I've had 4 bypasses. He will do fine. He will do fine. My mother was receiving wonderful, she was one of 10,000 in the Coast Guard. My question is this, is where's the compassion in Washington? We have fought in so many wars, so many veterans, so many wives, husbands, children, is watching their family members go off to fight. I don't think they fought for what's happening in Washington. I totally respect you, because I think every time you get on that plane, you enter a war zone when you go to Washington. And I understand that. But where is the compassion? Where is the humility? I think of our President Gerald Ford. What a role model. What a role model. So I hope you think about that, man, when you go back, and you think of us, and you think of all the people in this world, not just our country, but are affected by what's going on in Washington right now. And we're suffering. Everybody is suffering. Please, and ask yourself, where is that compassion?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Bill from Paisley. Hi,
Hi, Justin. I wonder how Washington would describe the free press. And do you think we have an information problem in the U.S.?
So, you mean George Washington? So, do we have an information problem in the U.S.? I mean, I think there's a lot of information out there. Some of it is false information. When I read the news, I see false information on both sides. One of the most striking things to me, having worked in Washington and knowing what's going on in Congress, is I'll be watching the news and I'll see the ticker feed or some breaking news, and it'll be a report about something that is in a private meeting that we had, and it'll be false. It won't be accurate. And this happens on both sides. It's not like just one way or the other. And I think that a lot of the problem when you're talking about more mainstream media, a lot of the reason they get it wrong is because the sources are bad. I don't think it's actually, I interact with a lot of reporters. I don't think in most cases it's because the reporters are trying to mislead you. Because my interactions with them indicate to me that it's mostly that they're getting bad information from other people. The various members of Congress and the White House want to put their own spin on things. So they have their staff go and meet with reporters. And the staff will often mislead reporters about what's going on in private meetings. And then the reporter will report it and treat it as though it's news. And they think they had a credible source because it's someone high up, a staff of someone high up. And it's just false. So I've run into that a lot of times. There is also a problem of actual fake news out there where and that, again, I've seen it on all sides. I don't even want to say both sides. I don't know, ever know what both sides means. It's been on all sides, where you get websites that just put things out to get people riled up one way or the other. And if you actually research the story, you'd find that it's not true. And so, yeah.
Are you guys focused on this at all? Or?
Are we focused on it? I mean, we have freedom of speech in this country, and we have a free press. So you're supposed to. People can publish things, and if it's something false about a public official, it's actually very hard to get it removed. You have to prove the falsity of it, which is very difficult. But so yes, you have a follow-up?
I do. Just a more direct question, Mike.
Yeah.
Very similar to but more direct to you, Justin. What's your role as my representative in Congress to hold this administration accountable for truth and maintaining an open relationship with the press?
So that's a great question. I am a public official. I do think I have a role in ensuring that there is still freedom of press, that it's protected. I mean, I swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. In our Constitution, we protect freedom of speech and the free press as well. So I have a role to speak out on those issues. I do think that the administration has made a lot of mistakes on this front. By leaving people out of, for example, I read yesterday CNN and New York Times and maybe somewhere else. And I think that we should have an open administration that's willing to talk to people. Maybe the president should do some town halls too. Make town halls great again. So my job is to speak out. I mean, I can't force the administration to meet with particular press people. How would I do that? I don't have any tool. The Constitution doesn't give Congress that power. I can't make the president meet with anyone. So The most I can do is speak out and ensure that when we pass laws, we are protecting people's rights, protecting the freedom of speech, protecting the free press, and if the president does something that I think is unconstitutional, then I have to hold him accountable. So,
By doing what? By doing what?
well, it depends on what the thing is. So, it depends on the particular issue. But
We are looking
One at a
to
time,
see you
please.
use your voice.
Yeah.
So please speak up.
Yes. If you follow me on Twitter at Justin Amash, you will see that I speak out quite frequently. I can speak out quite frequently about the president when I disagree with him. There are also going to be times when I agree with him on things. There's no doubt about that. Just like there were times I agreed with President Obama. So you're going to agree and disagree with people. It's my job to make sure that they are fulfilling their constitutional duties. I'll go here before you, because you're gonna. I thought you were tag teaming here.
We did not coordinate our questions.
Okay.
I have a visual aid.
Well, which one's good cop? Good cop, bad cop. Okay.
My name is Elena Gormley. I'm from Grand Rapids. I grew up in Middleville.
Yes.
And I brought a visual aid. Would you like to guess how much these medications cost?
A lot of money, probably.
$1,060 a month. I have a chronic illness. Fortunately, I do not pay $1,060 a month because I'm one of the people on Healthy Michigan because of Medicaid expansion. And additionally, if I did not have this coverage under Medicaid, I would not be able to work. I would be either collecting unemployment or disability. But because I was able to bounce back after a health crisis and get the treatment I needed and get these medications cost, because I do not have an extra $1,060 a month to pay for these, I start a new job next week. There have been a lot of current debates about what to do with Medicaid. There are proposals to cut it or turn it into a block grant program. Will you pledge to protect Medicaid or even expand it across the country?
So I won't pledge to keep it the same way it is. I can't make that pledge. I will work to make sure that whatever system we have, it protects people who are in your situation. The real problem ultimately, though, is that healthcare costs have to come down. So, while it is true that you're able to receive these medications at a lower cost, thanks to some of the programs that you've mentioned, the healthcare costs haven't disappeared. They're still there. They're just being paid by someone else. So at the end of the day, we have to find a way to reduce overall healthcare costs. So the pharmaceutical costs are a huge problem.
How are you going to fix it?
One of the ways you fix it is by, first of all, reducing approval times. So that sometimes it takes 15 years to get something approved. That does drive up the cost. That does drive up the cost of healthcare. But we also need greater competition within the pharmaceutical industry. We don't have.
Look at thalidomide. That was rushed through. What happened there?
I mentioned yesterday, I had a group of doctors and providers and others in my office yesterday. We had a conversation about this, and we had people who were pretty far to the left and also some who were pretty conservative in the room, and they all agreed that pharmaceutical costs are one of the biggest drivers of healthcare costs. And there were disagreements about exactly how to resolve it, but most of them did agree that we need to do something about the FDA, the way the FDA approves things, and also ensure that there is...
use Medicare to negotiate.
Because what happens right now is there are treatments that might work for you, but because the approval process is so long, they can't get it in your hands. So that is part of the problem.
No, consumer protection.
But thank you for your question.
So you're straight here. Sorry.
I'll go to you.
Good cop, yay.
Okay, so first off, my name is Amanda Leanne Bonzel. I'm a resident of Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm also a U.S. Naval veteran. My question has to do with healthcare in the United States. Last month, I wrote to you about this, and actually you did not answer my question in my response to me, which is why I'm here. Though I do appreciate that you took the time out to thank me for my service. So in that time period, since I've written you, I have had a pre-existing condition that has flared up, and surgery was suggested again for me. Mind you, I've had 4 surgeries in 3 years. I am a small business owner whose business is still in the infantile stage, and I am on Medicaid through the expansion. But because of defending to the Affordable Care Act, which I noted you did vote no for principal reasons, I have no idea when I will lose my health care, and my doctor and I, decided that holding off on surgery to see if my health issue will resolve itself is not the best choice because of politics. And for the first time, I've had to make a health decision based off of politics and not what's best for me. I actually had surgery on Monday, so if you hear the strain in my voice, that's why. You and I both agree that there needs to be healthcare reform, and you have stated before, talking about health savings accounts should replace the Affordable Care Act. For the 70,000 residents in your district who have Medicaid through the expansion, the ability to put money away into a health savings account may be hard or even impossible. What is your proposal for these constituents who would be most affected, especially people like me?
Yeah. So thanks for your question. So first, I want to be clear, nothing has been signed that has dealt with the ACA or repealed it or anything like that. So I want to make sure that we're clear about that. The Congress did pass a budget which I voted against because it included a lot of wasteful spending, among other things. But they did pass that. It was the biggest budget in U.S. history. That included reconciliation instructions so that they could work on healthcare legislation. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone. I don't think HSAs alone are going to resolve the healthcare problem. So I also want to be clear about that. The problem with the ACA is only part of the problem of the overall healthcare system. The problem with the ACA is it didn't reduce the cost of healthcare, the overall cost. It does reduce the price that some people pay for healthcare. There's no doubt about that. So there are people who will benefit from it. There will be individuals in this room who will benefit from it. The ACA was intended mostly as a type of financing system where in order to compel insurance companies to provide insurance to people who previously weren't insured, the government said, we're going to make sure you insurance companies get paid. That's basically what the ACA is about at the end of the day. But that doesn't reduce the overall cost of healthcare. So whatever we do, we have to find ways to actually deal with the problem, to bring healthcare costs down. For someone who is on Medicaid and is obviously, I'm sorry about your procedure coming up. We want to make sure that we have a way to provide for you. So I see more of a sort of like to think about healthcare in 2 segments. There should be more of a free market approach for everyday sorts of healthcare. I think not enough people are making, so for everyday things, colds, the type of things where you go to the doctor for basic injuries, you should have a very free market system. There also should be some way to provide for people, and the government may be involved in this, for catastrophic situations, for situations where the person doesn't have the ability to pay for it. Now, there are always going to have to be limits on that. There's no way around that. Whether you have if you have the government run it, there's going to be limits too. There has to be limits. So
I think I had one.
yeah. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with healthcare for the whole country, there's going to have to be some limits to how you handle it. If you're going to have the government handle it.
I have a follow-up.
So,
How about your insurance? Definitely.
so
I will follow up on that.
I'm on the ACA.
Right.
I'm on the DC exchange. So
Good.
I'll take care of insurance. I'll take it.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I'll go to you next then.
Two things very quickly. I think that somebody mentioned that one of the solutions is that if we all had the same insurance that you had as a state representative, as a congressman, it would solve a lot of problems. But I don't think anything can happen until you sign on to the process of ending the gerrymander that is the Congress of the United States. And in your case, your district is less awful than most in the system. But if anybody here has looked at a map of the Congressional District of Michigan, it's a bad joke. And it's a game in which constituents were not allowed to pick in. And the move is on right now, Justin, and you know that, to reform this system in Michigan one way or another. And I hope that you're going to pledge here today to urge your members of Michigan legislature to support a system that doesn't do what ours does today. We have 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats in the Congress in Michigan. The 4 Democrats got 100,000 more votes than the 9 Republicans.
Yeah, that's
We don't think that's the way it should work.
So that's great comment, and I think question as well. So I agree with your concerns about gerrymandering. To be clear, I think it is a problem. I also want to be clear that in this district I won each of the counties. So
This time you did.
Nobody said it was you.
So, and then also gerrymandering this last time around was designed to actually hurt me. That's why they gerrymandered the way they did. There was an effort. There was an effort by some within the Republican Party to defeat me a couple cycles ago, and so they've gerrymandered the district to try to make it more difficult for a Republican. So all you have to do is look at the district boundaries before compared to the district boundaries now, and you can see that. So I am for moving in a more independent direction. I would think the district should be drawn up independently, not by the government. I think that they should be as blocky looking as possible. Now, I would add that Michigan is better than a lot of other states. You should look at some of the other states out there.
Yeah, we still need to fix it.
So some of our districts, particularly on the west side of the state, are much more blocky than you'd see in other parts of the country, and the east side of the state also has some strange shapes. Some of that is due to voting rights requirements. So you have to also remember that if there is a majority-minority district, there are only certain things they can do to those districts. So sometimes you get strange shapes because there are actually voting rights restrictions that prevent you from changing the shape of the district, or prevent you from changing the makeup of the district too much. So I want to be clear about that. There are reasons on the left and the right why you have sometimes strange shapes. Well, they should be as blocky as possible. Now, on this side of the state, there's still going to be, I don't know that you're going to have the shapes change much, because like if you look at my district, it is basically 4 counties and then 1 township in another county. That's a fairly blocky district. Now, it does go down to Calhoun County, but if we didn't go down to Calhoun County, we go up to another county or east or west, and there would be someone else who would say, well, you're pretty far from my area. So there's no way to really avoid that. There's going to be some distance at times between the representative and the communities he's representing. But our district actually is relatively small compared to other districts. I can get from one part of the district to the other within a couple hours. So that is a relatively small district. I have a lot of colleagues who have districts where they have to travel 10 hours across the district, or they get some really strange shapes. I think there was one of my colleagues who had all of the southern counties.
What's he gonna do? What are you gonna do about it, though?
I said what I would do about it. Okay. I said I prefer an independent system for dealing with it. But I wanted to make sure I gave you the context for the answer. I'll go over this.
First of all, I want to thank you for doing these town hall meetings. I know you've been doing this because I know the person that I date, her Congress person won't do it. So, I appreciate you. On the 6th day in office, Trump issued an executive order to build the wall. Currently, we do not yet have a commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, but our most recent one, Gil Perlikowski, stated, quote, and I'll quote him, "The border and migration issues are just unbelievably complex, and a simple answer to a complex problem is most assuredly the wrong answer," end quote. Most illegal immigrants are not trying to scale existing fences, but actually come through the entry points. Plus, it would require a huge increase of agents to monitor the wall. The wall, if it covers only half of the border, is projected to cost $10 billion, plus you have to add billions of ongoing staff increases. How will you protect us from going into record debt levels from uncontrolled Trump spending? And he's not only looking at doing this on the wall, I mean, his infrastructure, which I believe in, but not his level of infrastructure and his level of military spending. I know you're a fiscal conservative, and that's one thing I believe in you, and he's out of control in terms of spending.
Yes.
Thanks. Well, so far we haven't had any legislation that would allow us to spend. But every president has been out of control with respect to spending over the last 6 years. So it's not just the president. And I think it's important to note that the spending doesn't happen in a vacuum. Congress approves that spending. So if spending has gone up, it's because Congress has approved it. And that's why I voted against so many of these spending bills, because they've been wasteful. And I have a balanced budget amendment that would phase in a balanced budget over 10 years without putting any substantive judgments within the balanced budget amendment. So it wouldn't tell people they have to raise taxes or lower taxes or raise spending or increase spending. It would just say you have to balance it and make sure that you have to balance it. So
specifically on the wall, are you supporting this?
No, I've said
not going to do anything for us.
So you made great points. One of the points you made was that most people who come here illegally don't cross the border like that. They might come on an airplane or travel in legally some other way. They might come in through the border, but they travel in legally, and then they overstay their visa. So that's the biggest problem we have with illegal immigration right now is people overstaying visas, and you have to address that. I don't have an inherent objection to building a wall, but I don't think
Berlin?
Wait, hold on a second. I just want to be clear. It's not one of my priorities, and I've told many reporters and said at many town halls that we're not going to have Congress pay for it or you pay for it. The president says that he wants Mexico to pay for it, and I think he should figure out a way. He should figure out a way to do that. His proposals so far have not been inspiring with respect to that. So the idea that, well, we'll pay for it first and then Mexico will reimburse us, that's ridiculous. So I don't support that. But again, there are people on both sides of the aisle who will say that it's okay to have some kind of border fencing or border wall. That's not the problem. The issue, there already is some. So the issue is it the most effective tool? And I don't think it's the most effective way to stop illegal immigration. As for the other question, the broader question about spending, I think you can count on me to vote against wasteful spending. I vote against many of the appropriations bills that Republicans bring up and that Democrats might bring up, some of the amendments they might bring up. So you can count on me for that. I think we have to deal with all areas of spending. You brought up military spending. President Trump pointed out just a couple months ago maybe, that there was all sorts of waste in the Department of Defense. If he's going to call for an increase in Department of Defense spending, I'll ask why. You pointed out that there's all this waste, so we should address the waste. I'll go to someone along the wall, because you have to, along the wall.
I was anti-wall.
I told this gentleman, right, that I would call him? Yes. I don't know who he is, but I don't know what he's going to say.
Okay, well, my name is Ken Kornheiser, and I live in Prairieville Township, very southwest corner of Berry County. I'm also very active in environmental activities. I know from your record and also from what you said on Thursday, where I was at the Battle Creek Town Hall meeting, that you have certain principles, and I do respect that you are a principled person. I do actually really respect that. I think your principles may sometimes take you in the wrong result, however, because you're not considering the consequences of the actions that you may or may not take. In particular, you said that you prefer to have fewer regulations, especially on the federal level. That's where your action is. You have, in particular, made some decisions, and I'll get to those in a minute, as far as questions, about reducing regulation from the EPA. You have made a point of saying you would like to leave these regulations to the states. Water does not stop at the state line. Air does not stop at the state line. It doesn't even stop at the national borders, but we won't get into Make America First PS. But with regard to regulations, EPA, reducing the EPA's ability to protect us, regulation means rules, but in the case of the EPA, it means protection. And you also fiscal conservative. That's a good thing. You don't want to spend unnecessary money. I think the decisions on the EPA are penny wise, pound foolish.
Yes.
In particular, in the state of Michigan, the Flint water crisis. This is exclusively a problem created by the state of Michigan through the emergency managers, the governor's office, and it is the governor's office as well. The DEQ, the Department of Health and Human Services, they make decisions for the bottom line. Let's make it cheaper. They did not put human health first. They said, let's make it cheaper. So what's the problem? No, I get to make a comment even if I don't have a question, sir. It'll come. This is the first environmental question today, so I'm going to have my say. This is my second meeting to talk to you about this. Okay. What was the problem with the EPA and the state of Michigan's Flint water crisis? They weren't pushy enough. They didn't assert their authority. And I can get you to the facts if you're not aware. But the reason why the EPA sat back is they were giving the state its opportunities. They lay back because there's so much criticism of the EPA superseding. So that's why they didn't do it. What's the big problem with EPA? They were not active enough. They were not overactive, not over-regulated. And if the problem had been taken care of properly, if the decisions had been made for human health first, it would have been cheaper. Hundreds of millions of dollars to rectify problems that could have been taken care of if it had been done right for a few $1 million a year in the first place. So there's a general question there in terms of the EPA regulation, but in particular, specific. Well, you can answer the specifics as well. Okay, you have voted for a number of these CRAs, these Congressional review, and in particular, you voted to rescind the stream protection rule preventing coal mines from polluting streams. You voted against limiting methane release from oil and gas extraction facilities on federal lands. So what is the reasons for these decisions?
So on those, I have to look. So we'll take a brief pause after this, but so my other people that if they want to come in. So in both of those cases, there was overreach. On the coal one, that was something that should have been handled at the local level, not at the federal level. The Bureau, the other one you talked about, the methane, that was being handled by the wrong agency. So you had the Bureau of Land Management handling it. So
who's handling it now?
Your point about the EPA, I agree with many of your points about the EPA. I think I haven't called for eliminating the EPA or anything like that. I think the EPA has a role. It has a role in regulating things that are on a broader scale. So things that cross state boundaries, things that affect the whole nation. I don't disagree with that. There is also a role for local regulations, for state regulations on things. Ponds that are located wholly within the state of Michigan, for example. So we want to be, we want to have a system where there is still local control, where the state of Michigan gets to consider the concerns of various individuals, farmers, for example, within our state who might be affected. We have to have all those considerations. You brought up points about the Flint water crisis. I made many of those same points at hearings in D.C. that the state of Michigan is mostly responsible. I've been very critical of the state of Michigan on that front. The EPA didn't act properly as well, but I think the state of Michigan is primarily responsible. We did pass legislation to increase communication between the state and federal governments, or to require a more open process so that you don't have the same sort of breakdown going forward. But at the end of the day, I do think it's a state of Michigan problem that needs to be addressed, and that the state of Michigan has plenty of resources to address it. I pointed out.
Should not have interceded because it was the state of Michigan, probably even to the state of Michigan.
No, the EPA.
Sitting back.
No, the EPA has a role in that, and we've had the EPA have a role in that for a long time, in ensuring that there's high water quality throughout the country. But the state of Michigan is primarily responsible for enforcing it. Now, there wasn't good communication back and forth. I don't disagree with you on that. And I made the point at a hearing that for just a minimal cost, additional cost, they could have protected the people in Flint by doing their job properly. And I also pointed out that at the same time the state of Michigan was giving, I think it was in the tens of millions over to Flint to deal with the crisis. They were also handing out film subsidies and advertising dollars to do Pure Michigan campaigns and all the rest. I mean, you're spending all this money on Pure Michigan, and then you're not dealing with the Flint water crisis. It doesn't make any sense. So I agree with those concerns. I think we're going to have disagreement on how broad of a role the EPA should have in very local matters. I mean, we're just going to disagree on that. But I agree with many of your concerns and think that the EPA does have a role.
Don't deflect. Don't deflect.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Just keep it short, though.
Yeah, it will be shorter than that monologue. Oh God, I hope it's not Nestle.
My name is James Gene Morton. I'm on the leadership team with Indivisible West Michigan. I live in Caledonia, Michigan, so I am one of your constituents. The ACA contains a provision, Section 1557, that many citizens are unaware of. For the first time in federal health care, the ACA provides for protections against discrimination on the basis of sex. It provides that men and women cannot be charged or assessed differently based on their sex. Something also well known, it requires that patients that belong to sexual and gender minorities, like gay or transgender people, cannot be discriminated against in healthcare settings. That means hospitals cannot deny visitation by a patient's same-sex spouse, for instance. This section is particularly salient to transgender citizens. Based on Section 1557, the Federal Department of Health and Human Services finalized a rule that prevents insurance companies from denying coverage for transgender-related care. Prior to this rule, all private insurance companies in Michigan include blanket exclusions for transgender health care in their policies. Now, they must cover transgender care that they also cover for non-transgender members, such as hormone replacement therapy and hysterectomies, for example. This care is critical to the health and well-being of your transgender constituents. How will you ensure that the spirit of Section 1557, that no person may be discriminated against on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity, survives the rip and replace of the ACA?
Thanks for your question. I don't believe in any discrimination against transgender individuals or anyone. And so I've supported provisions like that, not with respect to healthcare because we haven't had a vote on that, but we did have a vote on protecting transgender individuals with respect to federal contracts. And so I voted in favor of that. I was one of the few Republicans who voted in favor of that. I don't believe that the government should discriminate against people.
How will you save Section 1557 if there's a rip and replace?
So I can't speak to the particular section because obviously I support repeal of the ACA, as you all know, so you don't have to boo. Some of you cheered too.
Yeah, but even if everybody is letting you know that we're not for
I believe,
what you just said, can't you change your mind?
So I believe in protections for people who are transgender.
At the federal level?
Yes, so it will depend on,
Thank you.
I mean, it depends on the particular provision. I don't know what the provisions are going to be brought in front of us, but I do support that. I support protecting transgender.
In healthcare?
I support protecting transgender people.
Thank you.
So we don't want this to get out of hand here. Why don't we take a brief pause for a couple minutes, about maybe 5 minutes? If some of you want to depart, you're free to depart. If some people, if there are empty seats, then we can have people come in. So thank you. If you are leaving, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.